Now let me talk about the yield. So yield is a Ruby keyword that calls a block when you use it. Wherever we define the yield, that will execute the block, and the whatever the code has been written inside that block, that will be run. So let me take you with an example. Let me open that terminal. So this is just a normal method. Okay. So and here I have defined if I have given a block or not. If I have given the block, then it will print this one. Otherwise, it will not run this one. So let me define this one. I can call this method simply, okay, without passing the block. So now it will run this one. If this condition will become false, and it will not execute this one. Now if I call this with passing one block, it's not an hash, it will be a block. So I have passed this one. So here this has executed. Block given, yes, we have given the block. Now it has executed this one. So this is the way that we can define this one. Now suppose I have defined this block, but how? Suppose I have defined here something puts hello, okay, like this one. I have passed the block, so it is just executing this one and this one. Now I want to execute this one. The code has been written inside this block. How can I do that? So if you want to do this thing, just use the yield keyword. Let me show you. So suppose I have defined the same method, block given, yes, I have provided one block here, and I have written here puts 4 multiply by 5. Now if I am using here yield keyword. Now whatever has been written inside this block will come here and it will print like this. Assume that it has written here. So now I am using this yield keyword. Okay, now I am calling this method. Okay. See, yield keyword is executing this block. Whatever we have written inside this 4 multiply by 5, it is printing 4 multiply by 5. So it is printing this. It is printing this one, and printing 20. It has written nil because ports written nil. So now you can use the yield multiple times. For example, I have defined yield 1, 2, or 3 times. Okay, with the same code you can use yield 3 times. Let me show you. I have defined this method. See, yield 3 times. Now this is printing. This code of block will be executed 3 times. Okay, or you can define this multiple line of, this is the one line block. You can define the block with multi-line. Okay, so I have defined this block, and all this block is passing as an argument. Assume this, it will passing as an argument here. Okay, so here all this argument is passing inside this, and yield is executing. Now let me run this one. It will print 3 times. So 1 time, 2 time, and 3 time. See, so you can pass the multi-line block of code. Okay, so suppose your block is accepting one argument. For example, you have defined one block like this one, but here you can define one argument as well. With this example I am showing you, it is accepting one argument, right? And your argument is multiplying by 2. Okay, so we can pass the argument from this yield 5. I am passing one argument, and this argument will come here and multiply by this one. Let me run this one. I have defined this method. I am passing this block of argument. See, it is printing item multiply by 2. 5 is passing here and it is printing this. So we can pass the argument in yield as well. So that's a simple use of yield. Okay, now let me talk about the implicit and explicit block. So we have defined here one method, but we haven't defined here anything. Okay, so here nothing is defined, right? But that is accepting the block of code here. This is an implicit block that is by default this method is accepting. Okay, so this is an implicit block. So we can pass here the this block, and this method will run. We have just seen, right? But we can define one explicit block as well. So that's the syntax of defining explicit block. Okay, so I have defined this method. Okay. I have defined this method, and this is a way we can define this explicit block. Now I can call this method. Here we can call this method without passing argument and with passing the block. So the same way, there is a way to define this implicit block. There is a way to define this explicit block. Suppose we have passed this block and we have to call this one. How we can call this? So we can define here my block, and let me run this one. Suppose I have to run this block, so I will run this one, my block.call. Okay. Here, if I call this method and pass one block here, and this block will come here, and my block dot call, it will just call that. See, it has executed this one. So how internally it is working? See, this is a block, and when it is passing here, m% is calling the toProc method. Okay, and this is converted into the proc object, and then it is calling this one. Like we can call the proc object. How we can call the proc object? Like this one, right? Object dot call. The same way it is working here. We can this call method is calling this proc object, and it is executing it. Okay, now let me run this one. So either we can define the yield, or we can define this my block.call. This is exactly the same. When there is an implicit, we use generally yield. When there is an explicit block, we define it, then we call this my block.call. So let me show you that both are same. I have defined this method here. Now I am calling this one. See, my block, it is printing first this one, and you can ask this my block.class. So it is in proc. I just show you that if we are passing this, it is converting it into the toProc, and if you ask this what is your class, it will tell you I am proc. Okay, now if I print yield, it is just printing, it is just executing the code of block, and whatever it has written, it is just printing Neetesh Gupta. And if you call this my block dot call, it will also call this one, because this is the object has converted into the proc, and now it is calling my proc dot call, right? So it is calling this one. So either yield or this one, both are same. Yield is generally used for implicit block, and my block dot call is generally used for explicit block. Okay, so in the yield we can pass the argument, and in the explicit block we can also pass the argument. Just let me show this one as well. Suppose I have defined this block, okay, that is passing one argument. Okay, now we can call this method. Okay, we can call this method. Okay, and we can define our block that is accepting one argument. So 5 will come here, item, and it will execute this. It is printing 10 and returning nil. So that's it for this one. Now let me talk this last line as well. Ampersand calls it toProc method. How can I say that? Just let me show you. Ampersand is calling the toProc. Let me show you with an example as well. I have defined here one class. Here I have defined toProc method. Okay. So whenever this object I am assigning ampersand to this object, I have created the object of this class. See here, forget about this. I have one class. Okay, I created one object here, object, and I am using this ampersand on this object. So internally it is calling toProc method, right? And then it is passing inside this sum block as an external block. So let me run this one. It will call this toProc method and it will be printed. So let me run this one. I have defined this method. I have created one object calling this. So how it is executing? This object on this ampersand, okay, on this object, that it will call toProc method here. So it is here coming, this is my block, and we can pass this proc object into this method here, and now this proc dot call, that it will be executed, and this statement has been printed. So internally it is ampersand, it is internally calling toProc. So that's the purpose I just wanted to show you, and that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.